What's up and welcome back to episode 74 Pro Pels Talk presented by Liquid Death and Ornitos Tequila, part of the Boot Crew Media Network. Justin Napoli alongside Ross Tivino. Got a lot to talk about today. Devonte Graham, welcome to New Orleans. Garrett Temple, welcome to New Orleans. Sadaransky, I guess welcome to New Orleans. Hopefully we move him. Maybe he's a backup point guard. I don't know. We will see. Let's just get into it, Ross. First off, lunchtime pod. I'm a fan of it. How are you?
Fantastic.
Good.
Always exciting getting you hit that little lull right between even the end of the playoffs and this first day of free agency. I guess you have the draft, which is kind of a one night deal, but yeah, the first day of free agency is always just total madness. And excited to talk about. I mean, I think, from what I can gather on Twitter, I think Pelicans fans had unrealistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think yesterday was all bad. So
no, I want to get into it. So Devonte Graham right off the bat. So the first trade happened was Lonzo Ball sign trade. Coming back was Garrett Temple, Sadaransky, and a second rounder for Lonzo Ball. There was a lot of back and forth on Pelicans Twitter of, well, where are we going now? A lot of free agents started falling, the Kyle Lowrys, the Chris Pauls. But then around 9:00 last night was reported Devonte Graham sent to the Pelicans in a sign trade with the Hornets. We give up a first round to the Hornets. We give up a first round lottery protected pick, and we signed Devonte Graham for 4 years, $47 million. Just right off the bat, Lonzo and Graham offensively, Ross, put up the same numbers. Like they're pretty close to each other. They're both in the 37th percentile in 3-point shooting, catch and shoot. They're both in the 40+ percentages. They don't really attack the rim. They don't really get to the free throw line. Lonzo Ball 6'6", Devonte Graham 6'1". When Devonte Graham did start in 2019, he was 8th in the league at 7.5 assists, average 18 a night. He was really good for that Hornets team that didn't really have much playmaking ability like he will have in New Orleans with Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson. Now, everybody seems to like the player Devonte Graham. Not everybody likes the giving up the pick. What are your thoughts with the Devonte Graham sign and trade?
Yeah, so you kind of hit it there, right? I mean, I think just objectively looking at it, Devonte Graham, that is a very low risk, safe deal. Like there's basically no way for him, unless I guess he gets injured, to not perform to that deal, right? Because worst case, look, maybe he has to start for us for a little while, maybe he doesn't. But in either case, you're getting in my opinion, a quality NBA guard on the order of $12 million a year. Absolute worst case, you can move off that deal in a heartbeat. That is a tradable asset. Worst, at its worst. At best, he's a guy that provides shooting and spacing and possibly punch off the bench. There's a lot of things he can do. I'm perfectly fine with the deal. I think where people are frustrated, like you said, is that Griff sort of I think in some ways got taken advantage of.
With giving up the first round pick.
With giving up the first round pick. It's really no different, right, than what happened in the Lonzo deal. The Bulls called our bluff, right? You have two choices in restricted free agency. Either you match or the threat of matching, right, is how you sort of can work out some of these sign-in trades. Obviously, sometimes it just is beneficial for both teams, but they don't have a ton of incentive, right? The Bulls knew we weren't matching, so they weren't going to give you Kobe White. They weren't going to give you any of the stuff that you might have actually wanted. They kind of gave you the leftovers. That's fine. I feel like Charlotte flipped the script on us where they kind of called our, we nervously almost feels like, hey, we'll give you a first round pick to not match, right? And I mean, look, it's a market deal. Maybe they match it, maybe they don't. I don't know. But that's the only thing it felt like to me. But at the end of the day, you gave up something on the order of maybe the 15th pick to get Devonte Graham on, in my opinion, a market, maybe even a slightly below market deal. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I want to get to Jake Madison's tweet here. So Jake Madison had a really good tweet yesterday. So the Pelicans give up the 2022 Lakers pick in the Memphis trade with JV. They include their 2022 pick in the Devonte Graham trade. That means they cannot trade their 2023 draft pick this season to improve the roster at the trade deadline. That was from Jake Madison last night. that makes sense. I see why some people are kind of mad, but at the same time, to your point, it would have been very easy for the Hornets to match Devonte Graham. 12 million a year. They could have done that. The Pelicans needed a point guard. They needed a playmaker. They needed somebody to replace Lonzo Ball. Now, do we know there's still moves to be made? He could be starting, might come off the bench. I'm interested to see Devonte Graham with Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson, and even JV as well. I think he's a good point guard. I've watched some film on him. He's a guy that oozes confidence. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Nickeil Alexander-Walker with like shoot to get hot, shoot to stay hot kind of mentality, which I really, really like. But I wanted to bring up the graph that you made for us, Ross, and you compared 4 players here. And we're going to bring it up to everybody tuned in right now. And right here off the bat, here's the grid. Player A, B, C, and D. Ross, I want you to take it from here.
Yeah, so really, I mean, and this is just a point of comparison, right? Because some people either don't know a lot about Devonte Graham or don't think he's very good or whatever, right? I mean, he was not a high pick, kind of came out of nowhere, but you just put 4 players, and these are just 4 kind of similar-ish guards. When you start looking at it, there's some minor differences here, but not crazy differences. And the biggest thing that's not on here, right? So player A is Graham. These are last year's per 36 numbers. Okay. So player A is Graham. Player B is Terry Rozier. Player C is Kyle Lowry, and player D is D'Angelo Russell. Well, let's talk about the cost for these numbers. And really the biggest difference here is a couple points in field goal percentage. And hey, that may go up playing with Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, where he may get more open looks, right? Terry Rozier is in the $19 million range. Kyle Lowry just got 30. D'Angelo Russell is going to cost $29 million next year. We've got Devonte Graham, who's going to give you similar-ish production at $12 million a year. It's not this. The deal and the player are fine. They're perfectly fine. Look, Devonte Graham is not bringing us to a championship. Let's just put that out there right now. Okay. Nobody thought that. This is not the splash move that people wanted, but this is an okay deal. Like, this is an okay move, and this is an okay player. It's perfectly fine. It's nothing that
we didn't overpay for, like we're used to doing.
I was in a big argument with somebody earlier who was all upset and everything. Is the team today better than the team was 2 weeks ago?
Yes, 100%.
Unquestionably, right? Unquestionably,
they're absolutely better, and that's why
absolutely a better team. If you went into free agency thinking that we had a chance to get Kyle Lowry or one of these other guys, I almost feel bad for you because you allowed yourself to believe something that was never going to happen.
Right.
It was those guys don't come to places like this. And I'm not saying that New Orleans is not a desirable place. I'm saying that we haven't made the playoffs. We're not a good team at this point. We've had 3 coaches in 3 years. Like, this is not a stable situation. This is not a historic winner. This is not a place that has veterans, the people that can get other people to come here. Oh, and we're not necessarily willing to overpay for a mid-level free agent. Like, we weren't going to get those guys. You're working on the periphery this year. And if we're going to do something big, it's going to have to happen in the trade market. So,
and I want to get to that.
Go ahead.
Let's get to that mark. Now, Schmidt, who I think has been doing a great job the past 2 days. I think Schmidt has been really, really good. Had a tweet here today. He's talked to 2 cap guys about the Rashawn Holmes deal, and he's saying it's not technically legal, right? So the Kings have either future moves pending or there was a misreport or something like that. So to his second tweet, he says future moves pending would have to create just over 12 million cap space. So maybe dumping Bagley and or trading Buddy Hield. Now we all know that the Lakers were pretty close to landing Buddy Hield, and then they flip-flopped and went to Russell Westbrook. Ross, do you think that Buddy Hield is possibly a get for this team? Because he makes sense. He's a knockdown shooter. He obviously was drafted by this franchise a couple of years ago, then shipped off of the Boogie Cousins deal. People say Buddy Hield, people say Malcolm Brogdon. What do you got?
Look, between those 2 players, I want Brogdon like 10 times over. Okay. I think Brogdon is just a wholly better player than Buddy Hield. That's just my opinion. I think he's a much better defender. He's a much more committed team defender. He's more versatile on the offensive end. Malcolm Brogdon, in my opinion, is a much better player than Buddy Hield. Having said that, Buddy Hield fits with what I think we've been looking for all offseason, in the sense that He can stretch the floor. He can stand out there. He can shoot. He can do some things that are useful for what we're looking for. Oh, and he's not going to cost $30 million. Okay. But at the same time, I'm a little bit, I don't love Buddy Hield's contract either, right? He's locked in for, it is declining. I think he's 22 next year. It looks like 20 and a half and then 18. So it's not an awful deal. It can be moved if needed. The question is, what does it take to get him? And and can it be done? Look, he unquestionably would be a solid player for us next year. But again, getting Buddy Hield does not take this team into a top 4, 5, 6 seed. It just doesn't happen. So I'm not I don't lose sleep if we don't get Buddy Hield. Let's just say that.
Sure. And we talked about this earlier this morning, is that you still got Brandon Ingram, you still got Zion Williamson, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think he has to play good this year. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is somebody that, we've been shown the workout videos and upcoming, I'm not rookie of the year, but he has to be a guy that is an important piece for this team moving forward. He's got to be a guy now. He Drew Holiday's gone, Lonzo's gone. I feel like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, it is his time to shine. He shot around 33% this year or last year from 3-point line, but we all know he's a walking bucket, and also defensively, he's actually very good as well. So he's a guy I'm looking at to step up to kind of fill that void with Lonzo Ball gone, things like that, being a lead guard. And if you get a Buddy Hield, possibly, hopefully, a Malcolm Brogdon, something like that in the trade market, this team becomes fine. Now, me and you have gone back. This team's not going to win a championship this year, and I think that people have these big aspirations. They're just not. They're not ready.
Well, and everybody wanted. Everybody thought the Lonzo thing was going to net you some bigger reward. It wasn't gonna. I think to your point about Alexander Walker, and this is, in my opinion, even true for Kyra and Jackson Hayes, pending whatever happened with him in California. Those 3 guys are still so important for this year, and the rookie, right? Both of them are so important for this year, because to the extent that any of those guys can just take a step or even a leap forward, you now become a player in the trade market. How many times have we talked about, you want to get a James Harden type, you want to get a Bradley Beal, Anthony? Look at the trades, right? We have all these picks, and that's awesome.
The Nets pick. You
have to attach quality young players with potential to either make an all-star team or be impact players, right? Harden, there was a bunch of picks involved in that, but you had LeVert and you had Jared Allen. Jared Allen just got $100 million from the Cavs. Karis LeVert's a big piece. Anthony Davis, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram made an all-star team, got a max contract. If you can't attach something that could turn into something to a deal, you've got nothing. You're never going to get that third star that everybody wants here. So it is their development is still, look, Zion and BI and them getting better. That's in terms of winning games, that's the most important thing. In terms of getting that third piece, Kyra, Naw, Jackson Hayes all have to take another huge step forward. And Jackson Hayes and Naw did last year. They took a step. Now we need the leap. And
Kyra Lewis is going to have a summer league under his belt. I'm expecting Kyra Lewis to make a leap this year. But as we said, those 3 guys have to take a leap this year. They're huge for this team. So, and then moving forward here let's go to Lonzo Ball real quick. You get Garrett Temple, you get Satoransky, you get a second rounder. I mean, a lot of people wanted something more. I just don't think we already kind of hashed on that. I just didn't really think you could have gotten much more for Lonzo Ball. He's a good player, things like that. We got Devonte Graham. You get Garrett Temple, who's just a veteran leader. Satoransky, who knows, he might be sent the other way. We'll see. Quick thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't actually. I mean, I guess if to the extent that it helps you do something else, Satoransky's a fine player to me that can come in, handle the point. You just weren't going to get anything back. You had no leverage, right? And in doing these deals, leverage is everything. We had none, and we weren't going to match the Lonzo Ball deal. Having said that, if we move on from those players, great. It sounds like Temple's definitely here. Satoransky, it sounds like there's a little more, that's a more fluid situation. If he is here, though, he's a quality backup rotational player. He's a guy that plays, right? This is not a scrub. This is not an into the bench guy. This is a guy that can come in. I mean, I think for his career, he's probably averaged something on the order of 22, 23, 25 minutes a night for multiple teams. He's a guy that can come in and actually play. I mean, I think last year he shot over 50% for the Bulls, playing almost 25 minutes a night. Okay, so not a terrible player. You got something for nothing, right? He was the difference was he's leaving. Lonzo was gone. And look, if the Satoransky thing is, even if he's gone, then he helped you get something else. If he stays, he's only here 1 year, $10 million. It's right. Fine player.
From Josh in his bag on YouTube, do we get Hart back? I'm not really sold on. I think Josh Hart's very replaceable. I think we have Najee Marshall. I'm not very necessarily.
Yeah, I think the Garrett Temple thing kind of is Josh Hart's out the door.
Yeah. So, do you think he's possible for a sign and trade opportunity for Josh Hart as well, or no? Is that a possibility? Do you think that Josh Hart could be lumped into something with a sign and trade?
I think he definitely could be lumped into something. That Memphis deal is just getting so convoluted. I mean, there's a lot of things that could still be pushed into that. It just is. It's getting confusing, even for somebody that sort of follows this stuff every day, like we do. I definitely think Hart is a candidate for a sign and trade. I don't know what that looks like, or to who, or to be honest with you, who we would even be targeting in that situation.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's back here. I'll say that.
Yeah. I mean, he hustles. He's a fine player. I just don't need to overpay for Josh Hart. You have Najee Marshall waiting in the wings. Najee Marshall can easily fill that void. Heat and Lakers. The Heat make some splashes yesterday that I don't necessarily agree with. They're going to be good. I still don't think they're good enough to beat the Nets, but pay Lowry $90 million, pay Duncan $90 million, get PJ Tucker, and then they extend Jimmy Butler. And then the Lakers, Jesus, Trevor Ariza, Ellington, Bazemore, and Dwight Howard.
That's a mess. That Laker team is quickly turning into a mess. Well, look, it's kind of like the Cavs situation, right? Like LeBron is leaving. I have been probably as vocal of how not excited I was about having all of these picks and everything. I'm actually pretty excited about having these mid 2020s Laker picks now. LeBron is leaving that cupboard bare. LeBron, the player, one of the best of all time. LeBron, the GM, I literally wouldn't let him manage my daughter's 5-year-old AAU team.
I mean, listen, the Lakers have a really big three, and we talked about it this morning, but if one of those guys go down, that team is not very good. And we all know LeBron and AD aren't going to play 82 games this year. Russell Westbrook's just a gamer. He's always going to play. But the Lakers moves are, they're making all these like veteran moves. They're kind of heads like Trevor Ariza is still I cannot believe Trevor Ariza is still.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a gross team. I mean, it really is for me. And they may win it all. Look, if they stay healthy, they are absolutely a candidate to win it all.
Sure.
But they are not setting themselves up.
No.
And granted, look, when you have LeBron James, you're not really worried about 2 years from now. You're worried about stacking up as many titles as you can.
Right. So
that team could look god awful in 3 years. That team, it could just be an absolute train wreck.
So that's very good for the Pelicans moving forward. Last thing, so just Pelicans don't overpay for the first time in a while, right? So I felt like we overpaid for Steven Adams last year when we extended him. We've overpaid for Solomon Hill, Omer Asik, Alexa Ajinka. So the list goes on and on. This year, Griffin didn't. He clearly made it a point that he wasn't going to overpay for guys in kind of like a bleak market, Ross, right? So like, yes, I mean, we could have paid $33 million for Kyle Lowry. Does Kyle Lowry really make this team that much better? Like
I pulled it up. And I'm not just saying this. Look, Kyle Lowry has some leadership capabilities. He's still a very solid player and everything, but he just isn't that great of an on-court player anymore. He's just a very good leader. He can run your offense. He can do a lot of really good things. He's a tough as hell guy.
But that's it.
$30 million for our team. Kyle Lowry doesn't make us a championship contender. I don't like that money is best left either split amongst multiple guys that can make the team better, given to younger guys that can grow with us, or kept around on 1-year deal type players, stuff that you can move off of in the event that somebody that is integral to the future or could be integral to the future comes available for a trade.
Yes. Let me cut you off here. So Devonte Graham's player A, player B is
Terry Rozier.
Player C is
Lowry, and D is D'Angelo Russell.
So there you go. I mean, Kyle Lowry, player C.
Basically, all of those guys make at least double or triple what Devonte Graham makes.
I mean, it's a great deal. I understand we get a first rounder and things like that, but like It's a good deal. David Griffin, there's no way that he's done making moves. I don't know what's next. I think he's gonna have to be big in the trade market, but he's not done. So I know it's hard to be patient. It's hard to be a small market, and we want big splashes, but that's just not how small market teams win. And the last point I want to make, Ross, is we talked about it again this morning. The Phoenix Suns, right? They had Devin Booker, they had DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, right? Then they traded for Chris Paul, right? Everyone forgets that they traded for Chris Paul. They go off. They take the momentum from the bubble. They make a great run through the playoffs, get to the finals. Then Chris Paul sees it, wants to stay there, try to win a championship before he retires. So you got to be creative being a small market team. You got to draft well. You have to trade well. I do think Devonte Graham's a good player. We're going to have to see how the rest of this roster looks here in the next couple of weeks. And I think we're going to start getting some answers very soon. But, thanks for joining us again. I love this little lunchtime little podcast. Stay tuned. You can follow us on Pro Pels Talk on Twitter or Instagram. That's Ross Thibodeau, Justin Napoli. Once again, this podcast is sponsored by Liquid Death Water. Yes, that is a water, not coffee and or energy drink. And also by Hornitos Tequila. So thanks for everybody who joined, and we will see y'all shortly.